Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for the chance that given to me. Before I start with the material, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nurhasina. I'm majoring in English education at Universitas Negeri Makassar. Then I will be immediately discuss my proposal entitled Media or Tools Used in Teaching, Speaking, Talk, Conversation, and Result Research. Okay. Introduction. Like this capture consists of background, problem statement, objective, significance, and scope of the research. The first is background. Vocabulary is the key of learning language. Without vocabulary, language learners often not be able to use it effectively without a sufficient amount of vocabulary. According to Explore Learner's Pocket Dictionary 2030, vocabulary is one of the words that person know or use to all the words in language and three lists of words with their meanings. This it can be concluded that vocabulary is the key of language used to convey the message to communicating with each other. And this research needs to be studied because it tries to give use a new method to teach based on student rule. As we know that most of students are interested in playing games nowadays. The first one of ways to make them to love studying, especially English. English English is the key thing, the method of teaching or learning based on what they want and like. And then problem statement, as it was stated in background above, the student will like a vocabulary because of picture mentioned previously, and the research try to use segment game in order to improve student vocabulary. Does the use of segment games improve student vocabulary? About my question, and then she objective of research based on the research statement above. The objective of the research was to find out whether or not segment improve the statement vocabulary, and then the significance of the research. Theoretical significance, like the results of the study may give more information about improving student vocabulary method using segment game. And the last is the scope of the research. There are three main areas of the scope of this research, namely disciplines, contents, and active. By these plans in the research is under applied linguistics. By content, the research is try to build the student vocabulary using segment games. And then review or related literature. This chapter consists of some preface related findings, some pertinent including conceptual framework, and third is some pertinent this, and this part discuss the concept of vocabulary related to segment game and using segment in teaching vocabulary. And the second one, types of vocabulary. A word is a word in a language where small element which call make up language and fiction to express ideas linguistic, classify vocabulary into kinds. Herman distinguished two types of vocabulary, and then and the second and the third, the importance of vocabulary. Vocabularies, the key or essential part in all skill: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The first skill are nothing without vocabulary. Is in listening, we are not able to get information by listening without knowing and understanding the word well. And then the principles of teaching and learning vocabulary Willis indicate the 9 principles of the teaching and learning vocabulary are: the first is aims, the second one is the need, and then situation like quantity, meaningful, and then the next theories related to Hegman game and use Hegman in teaching vocabulary. For is the theories related like a definition of Hegman game, like advantages and disadvantages of using Hegman games, using Hegman games. Using Hegman in teaching vocabulary, like introduce rules and then demonstrate and then resume and next practice like playing Hickman, and the last conceptual framework. Conceptual framework, the first is the student for knowledge and learning vocabulary, and then Hickman games, and then student vocabulary. Nah, di dalam konseptual framework ini ada guru memfokuskan siswa terdiri dari 5 skill. Nah, yang pertama yaitu meaning, yang kedua itu form, yang ketiga pronunciation, yang keempat tuh spelling, nah yang terakhir ada use. Research method. This chapter presents research design, population and samples, variables of the research and their operational definition, instrument of the research, and then procedure of collecting data. And last is experimentation and technique of data analysis. The first is research design. In the research employed pre-experimental method with the one of group, pretext, and test, and investigate the use of Hickman game to improve student vocabulary. And then the last is research variables and their operational definition. These parts describe the research variables and the operational definition. Research variables were defined independent, and in the independent variables, the operational definition of this research consists of vocabulary and Hickman game. And population, according to Gray 2020, 2020 population, what the groups of interest to the research, the group which see we like the result of the student to generalize it. And then sample, according to Gray, a good sample was one that is representative of the population from which is selected. The research use clustered random sampling technique. The research choose one class of the A class of B as the sample based on lottery. The sample consisted of 1,221 students. A research instrument. The instrument of this research was a vocabulary test or pretest and potest. The test consists of 20 items of 10 items pronouns the words, 10 items spelling the words, 10 items of multiple choice, 10 item cross-check test, and 10 item of the making sentence. And then the next procedures of collecting data, like a pretest give in the first meeting. The pretest was used by the research to measure the student vocabulary mastery before the instrument using Hackman games. The times allocated for the task is 80 minutes and atau 2 kali 40 menit. And then treatment after conducting the research gives treatment to the sample groups in the second meeting. And the next post test. At the end, the research give a post test atau 2 kali 40 menit to the student. The test was the same test that was used the pre-test. And the last is technique of the data analysis. After after collection data, pre-test and the post-test from the student, the research measure the score differences from pre-test and the post-test of student by the statistical calculation. Okay, I think that's all about material uh, about my result proposal. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.